All right, good evening and welcome to Futbol En Vivo on Club Deportes, show number 9. We air every Monday at 10 p.m. on clubdeportes.com. Be sure to follow us at Futbol Austin on Twitter, FUTBOL Austin, and follow Club Deportes at Club Deportes. And for all the latest and greatest sports news and commentary, be sure to visit clubdeportes.com. I am your host, lifelong Portland Timbers
Oh, what?
fan, Eric McCoy, and I am not joined by David Alvarez this week. There's no David. He is too distraught because he waited until this week to finally decide to buy a Chelsea FC jersey. Big mistake for David because you can't do that right now. I am,
No.
however, joined by the one, the only Jorge Chavez, a man with a voice smoother than Kai Havertz's first touch.
Yes.
Jorge,
Thank you
how are
very
you doing?
much.
How are you doing this evening?
Well, pretty smooth now.
Doing things virtually this week, huh?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah, back in the old studio closet. Feels good. Natural. My natural habitat here.
Yeah.
All right, let's not waste any time though. Let's get right into to Austin FC. So on last week's show, we had a little wager.
Right.
So you and David were both a little conservative as far as your predictions as Austin FC, how they would perform in this match against Portland. You each predicted a draw for Austin FC. I was feeling optimistic. I was going all in on it. I thought Austin FC would get the win, and I said if they didn't, I was going to have a hat that I would wear
Yes.
this week's show. And because I am a man of my word, give me just a quick second here.
Uh-oh.
Just in time for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Got a nice green hat. And it'll be perfect for our discussion of these two green
The two
MLS
green
teams.
teams. Yep.
Yeah, the two green teams. Okay, Austin FC. Jorge, it turns out
Yeah.
Portland's defense is a little better than Cincinnati's and Miami's.
Yeah.
This Austin FC, they lost their first match of the season, the first match where they have failed to score a goal.
Right.
1-0 defeat to Portland at Providence Park. What are your thoughts on this match? How concerned should we be?
I don't think we should be concerned at all. They played pretty much the same lineup that they did in the previous 2 weeks. They only changed Gabrielsen for Keller.
Did you like that
Probably.
decision to go Gabrielsen instead of
It,
Keller?
it,
That was a
it made
bit
it made
controversial on
it
Twitter.
no, it made sense because Gabrielsen has more experience than Keller. Um, but you know, as far as MLS experience, they both have the exact same amount. So
In
and
terms of
Keller,
experience playing on, I mean, I don't know what the pitches are like in Norway, but
yeah,
that pitch in Portland not necessarily the greatest. Very slick, and it's certainly a wet night in Portland too.
yeah, it rained a lot, so the conditions weren't really there to to play the kind of soccer that Josh Wolff has envisioned, and we're getting used to now with for Austin FC the way they play. So you know eh, you can't win all the games, but compared this game compared, and we're seeing now on the
Yeah,
screen
that was the
that
pivotal moment right
that
there. The
was
one
was
goal of the
the
match.
only goal, and but if we get to see the replay, Gabrielsen wasn't in bad position. He just slipped because it was a wet field. So it happens. Here's where the replay is. He was in good position and he sort of stumbled and maybe tripped on himself or slipped, but he left his marking man open, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. But the Austin FC did not give up. They had a lot of really good chances. This one in particular was a big missed opportunity. It was a good pass. Especially once Valencia came in. I think. I mean,
So
what's his name?
do you think Wolf got, because that was, I feel like going into the match, the two big decisions were,
Right.
does Austin FC start Keller or do they start Gabrielsen? And I think also in central defensive midfield it was, do they stick with Danny Pereira or do they
Right.
go with the more defensively resolute Johan Valencia. So do you think Wolff got that wrong going with or going with Pereira over Valencia?
Um, Maybe. I mean, it could be the same argument as before that he went with experience over youth, and
And I think
he
it's actually worth noting. So that free kick that we
yeah,
saw from Portland, that was because of a not so great Danny Pereira foul. The Portland attacker was actually dribbling away from goal,
right,
and Pereira hacks him down. And as we see,
yeah.
Aubameyang has been a gift that fell from the sky. I actually wrote that quote down just to see if
Oh,
we could
good.
use it. I love that quote
Yeah.
from
So
Chavez.
you know, both of those questions probably. I think it would have helped if Valencia would have started. Uh, because if they were going to go with the experience over the youth and starting lineup, they should have made both changes. But I think Josh Wolf probably in his head thought two changes are probably too much to mess with the
Mm.
chemistry that's kind of building for this team. So he may have overthought it, to be honest.
So you
And
were saying before we went on air that you actually think that it's been a good thing that there's kind of this core,
right,
consistent lineup that we've seen from Wolf. So you think it would have been a bad idea to make too many changes to a lineup that in the first two matches have been very successful?
yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty important for a team to kind of know their base. I mean, you can't argue with the results in the previous two games. They played very very well. They played cohesively. Everybody knew their assignments, and when the substitutions came in, they proved you know they proved worthy. I mean, another thing that I saw is that they pretty much consistently go with the same substitutes because when they, except for the Gabrielsen, they didn't play Keller for some odd reason. So I thought he would have made maybe a difference,
I'll
but
never complain about a Kip Keller appearance.
no,
Love the
he's
kid.
yeah
Yeah.
the kid's pretty much won Austin's hearts over these past few since he's been here. But uh, Finley played well again. Ethan Finley as a substitute, he brought in some energy and he put the ball in places that could have produced that had potential, but again, you sometimes need luck. The ball to bounce the right way for to get a result, and it just didn't happen in this game. But
So why do you think though? Why do you think Austin FC struggled to break down this Portland defense? Is it simply that this is just a better team
it,
than what Austin
it's
FC
just a
faced the
better
first two
team.
weeks, or do you
Yeah,
think
I
there
mean,
was
definitely.
do you think there's more that could have been done from Austin FC in attack? Like, what do you think the issue was here?
I think they probably obviously Portland a much better team than Cincinnati and Miami, but there is that caveat that week in week out teams play differently. I mean, Cincinnati ended up winning this weekend
Yeah,
2-1,
Cincinnati may not
so
be quite as
they,
bad
they,
as
they
we
may not be
thought.
as bad, and Miami, that's
They
another
might be
subject.
worse than what we
They're
thought. They're
probably
looking
worse.
pretty bad right now.
Yeah, so it's probably unfair to measure those kinds of things from one week, compare one week's team to results and then the next. So Portland's pretty consistently played well this season. They pretty much continued the same kind of drive from last season. So they'll be contenders again this year. And so again, I don't think there was a bad result. I mean, losing 1-0 to the defending Western Conference champion at home, it's not bad. I mean, you know, it's a learning experience. Sometimes you learn from your mistakes, and I think as long as they dwell on missed calls, because if we want to get back
So
to a little bit,
okay? Because that was a topic, some controversy on social media.
right?
I think it was two penalty shots back to back almost. You had the GT shot that went off the Portland defenders.
Right.
Looked like it went off his arm. I think the first one was more of a penalty than the second one. It goes off the corner kick that bounces off
Right.
Rasmussen. The Portland that kind of maybe bounces off his arm, maybe doesn't. Can't really get a clear shot on the replay. Did Austin FC have a reason to feel aggrieved about either of those no calls?
They didn't make much. Well, they did. They did on the second one. It did look like like the Portland defender kind of lifted his shoulder a little bit and extended his elbow, but you can't really tell where the ball hit.
See,
And
if you could have
so
definitively seen that it went off his
yeah,
arm, he definitely moves his arm out. And
yeah,
if
he
you could
moves
have
his arm out.
definitively seen that it hit his arm, I think that absolutely should have been called a penalty. But we
Yeah,
just didn't get that clear replay that showed the ball going off his arm.
right. I mean, we did.
Invest more in cameras, MLS. We need more cameras at these games. We can actually get a clear picture of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, and we talked about this earlier, like you said. So it was a 50-50 call. I think if they would have called a penalty, they would.
there's the
Yeah,
match
there's a
referee.
referee for the match.
Right? I can't imagine why he would have missed that call. I
Yeah,
can't
I
imagine what it could have
have
been.
hard to tell how,
And
but
that was about how many yellows he showed at about the first 20
yeah,
minutes of
there
the
was a
second
little
half.
stretch there that were like
Everyone was getting a yellow
everyone
card.
was getting a yellow, and it was like four from about the mid from about the start of the second half till about the 60th minute. It was like one after the other, and that may have contributed to the substitutions that Wolf made, because
Yes, I think
yeah,
it absolutely did.
yeah, and so you don't want to against a good team. You don't want to give Portland the advantage to attack
Yeah, you had
against
Cecilio who picked up a yellow come off, Pereira who picked up a yellow come off.
especially Pereira,
Yeah, he
because
looked a
I
bit
think
overwhelmed at the start of the
yeah,
second
I
half.
think if he would have stayed, he would have been, hesitant to defend, and
Yes.
he would have been attacked. And uh, the odd part is his replacement, Johan Valencia, also got a yellow card. So
He kind of always gets one though, Valencia. He
yeah,
hasn't
which is
quite figured out how
odd
to
because
navigate a
yeah,
match without picking up a yellow.
this is the second yellow of the season, so he's needless to say, he's still adjusting to the rough and tumble of MLS. But I think he'll be fine. He's proved
No,
himself.
he looks very comfortable on the ball. Really
Right.
smooth passer. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that stands out to me is just how crisp his passing is. Actually, looking at the numbers, he actually in 25 minutes
Yeah.
actually had more progressive passes completed per FBref.com than anyone else on Austin FC, which is astounding. I thought
Yeah.
he was just really good on the ball.
Yeah. And once he and Ring and Driussi click, as far as knowing their nuances and kind of learning the speed of how they get to certain places and the placement and where they usually are in depending on the alignment. I think once that starts solidifying, it'll be an even better team. But again, that also depends on Danny Pereira to see how his progression comes
Yeah, and
along.
actually, okay, so the start of the second half,
Yeah.
the match kind of looked to get away from Pereira a bit, and he really
Yeah.
struggled. That's when he picks up the yellow, and that's when he gives up the bad free kick that leads to Portland's goal. But in the first half, I thought he was pretty exceptional. So he actually led Austin FC in tackles. He had 4 tackles
Right.
in this match, and I think in general, when Austin FC would lose the ball, Pereira was so good. I've noticed this in all of Austin FC's matches this season. When they lose possession, Pereira is one of the key players that pushes forward and wins the ball back
Right.
and prevents the opposition from going on dangerous counterattacks. And that's
Right.
actually the thing about Austin FC in this match that most impressed me was how little they allowed Portland to create dangerous opportunities on the counter. I think they were
Right.
so much better in defensive transition than what we saw from them last season. I mean,
Yeah.
this we saw in the match in Portland last season was just a disaster
Right.
as far as defensive transition.
Yeah, and I think that's partly the reason why they went after a guy like Johan Valencia, because they're
Absolutely.
very, very, very similar type players. The only difference is probably Pereira's a little more offensive minded
I think
and
Pereira's a
Johan's a
bit
little more
more.
defensive, but
I think I think Pereira is a bit more aggressive. I think he's a bit more the one
right,
that's going to actually run out into midfield and seek to win the ball back, whereas Valencia
right,
is going to sit deeper and kind of shield the center backs in that
right,
manner. If you're a
right.
Chelsea fan, you're going to have a bit of a decent memory on you. I think Valencia is more of the Claude Mekalele, and Pereira is
Okay,
more the
yeah.
N'Golo Kante. Like
Right, yeah. Okay.
Mekalele
That's it. That's
sitting
fair.
in front of the back
Yeah.
four, whereas Kante chases the ball. I think
Right.
Pereira is more of that ball winning type of defensive midfielder.
Right, and so, and that's we mentioned it. I think either we mentioned it in the last game or in Twitter that it's good to have kind of, you know, quality replacements or quality substitutions because, you know, we're talking about two players that either one really could start for a good stretch of games for the season, and they wouldn't. There would not be a letdown, and so I
Yeah,
think
the
it's
depth is what is one of the
depth,
key differences from last
right?
season to this season. The bench has
Yeah,
gotten so much better. So
yes.
I
I
want to
mean,
go ahead, Or.
no. I mean, just thinking about the substitutions, Gite replaced Urruti. Finley replaced, I think, Fagundes. Fagundes didn't really have a really good game. I think
No,
you
no,
know,
I don't think he had a good match either.
he's allowed. I mean, you know, he can't have a good game every
We
single
still
game.
love you,
So
Diego. Still
yeah,
love
you're still our guy. But yeah, so you know, it's just one of those games that, you know, it could have gone either way, and unfortunately, it didn't go our way. So yeah,
So I want to actually shift a bit. We've been pretty rosy, and I think justifiably so as far as our take on this match. I want to highlight a couple players that maybe didn't impress me as
okay,
much, and I want to start with a player who has been a very polarizing figure on our show and I think other shows as well,
uh-huh.
and that's Cecilio Dominguez. I
Right.
don't think this was a particularly good performance from Cecilio. How did you see it, Jorge?
He looked pretty quiet. Uh,
Yes, indeed.
he pretty invisible during during the whole game. I think he did have a couple of shots here and there, but nothing really. I mean, it goes to show the type of play he reminds me a little bit of Chicharito in the sense
Mm.
that he's a bit of a poacher. So he needs somebody to be able to provide him a good through ball or a good pass to be able to put it in the net. He doesn't really create his own kinds of shots, and when he tries, he is like, you know, he's like a delicate fragile flower, and he flops all over the place trying to
Yes,
get a
I
call.
can hear David Alvarez yelling from
Yes,
his break
probably
that he's on
agrees.
right now about
Yeah,
in the
he
time
didn't
he
really
spends on the ground.
he didn't really do that all that much, but you know, he does that every game. That's just him. That's, you know,
He wasn't really
you
involved enough to
but
do that,
he involved
to
exactly.
be fair.
Yeah. So you know, I think be, him having a bad game and Fagundes having a bad game, that just sort of closed what the options that Driussi could have. And
I
so
agree 1,000% with that, Jorge.
yeah,
We talked about it last week or when we discussed the Inter Miami match and
right,
how essential it was to us since he's a to have Fagundes and Cecilio high and wide, stretching
right,
Inter Miami's defense, creating that space centrally for Driussi. And
right.
neither Fagundes or Cecilio were good options out wide or anywhere else. And Driussi really suffered. So I looked at
Yeah,
Driussi's numbers. Um, Against Cincinnati, he had 65 touches, and against Inter Miami, he had 75 touches. Against Portland, just 44 touches. So he's much less
much
involved in
much
this
less
match.
involved.
And I think
Yeah,
that's down to just not having that width, and everything was just so congested
right.
centrally. And we saw the version, I think, of Cecilio that just really frustrates me. The diving and stuff like that, I'm not a fan of it, but it doesn't really me quite as much as our not here co-host
Mhm. Yeah,
David.
yeah.
The thing that frustrates me was you have a compact defense, and he just kind of
Yes,
wanders centrally into the compact
right.
area, and then tries to get on the ball in those positions, and he just does nothing works. He'll take a bad shot, he'll lose
Yeah.
possession. That's the version of Cecilio that just aggravates me to no end, and we saw that version against Portland.
Yeah, and that really is speaks to the quality of defending that Timbers has. I
Oh,
mean,
their center back pairing is
they are
outstanding. Their
exceptional.
central
Yeah,
midfielders are really good, and their fullbacks were great. And they didn't.
yeah.
That was part of why
So
Cecilio and Diego struggled as much as they did.
exactly, and so you know, they really struggle, especially for Gundes against the guy that was marking him. He just didn't get as involved as he probably wanted to, and he probably could probably
Yeah,
admit that to
that was
himself.
actually Rasmussen. He is was
Yes,
actually Portland's backup left back because their starting left back Claudio Bravo, not the Claudio Bravo that
not the
that
goalkeeper.
Football En Vivo knows, and a
Yeah,
different Claudio Bravo picked up a red card against LAFC, so he was suspended. That's actually a backup left back that shut
right.
Diego Fagundes down. on it. I thought he was great, Rasmussen, in this match.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to the quality of your backups. I mean, if your backup can do that, I mean, they're going to be.
That's the kind of depth you need to be a team that
Yep.
competes in MLS. You need to have that depth.
Exactly, and that's why I think I read somewhere one of the local beat writers. I can't recall who it was, but he says that we're probably missing that one piece at central defender because if we have Gabrielsen and he's fine and he could probably go back and forth with Kip Keller, but his partner on the center backs, it's either going to be Cascante or Romagna, and Cascante didn't look all that good either during the game. Romagna didn't play, so I think that's probably the need that they have that they're going to look for during the summer transfers to see what's available. Not necessarily a starting caliber type guy, but someone with experience. Someone that they can throw in there and wouldn't be totally lost. So I think that's probably the missing piece.
I don't entirely disagree with that. I think Cascante was okay in this match. I think he's been much improved from what we saw last season.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, depth at that
definitely,
position,
yes, very definitely. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it. But I actually think a bigger issue is not necessarily center back, but center forward, which brings me to the next player that caught my eye in a negative sense, and that's Maxi Urruti.
Right.
I don't think this is a good match for Urruti. How did you see his performance?
He looked. He didn't attract that much attention from the defenders.
No, not at all.
So they basically weren't afraid of him. Whereas in the Montreal and the Inter Miami and the Cincinnati game, the defenders were well aware where he was, and he got himself in good spaces, and he was shifty and caused all sort of havoc. But in this one, again, it goes back to the defense. They were able to hold those three front guys right where they wanted them. They're not creating very much chances. They weren't open all that much. And Urruti, again, I probably agree that he probably didn't have a very good game. So once GT came in, I think his speed contributed a lot. That's when they attacked a lot better. And so I did mention last week that he played injured during the Miami game. So it could still be something lingering there. But Urruti's a pro's pro, and he probably wanted to try, and it didn't work. So
yeah, a couple of things I want to bring up. So I think this game against Portland, I think this was the most conservative opponent that Austin FC have gone up against in terms of just like where they position themselves defensively. They sat deeper than Cincinnati and Miami. Both of those teams, I think, look to get out and attack a bit more consistently than what Portland did. And against a team that's going to be playing as defensively as Portland did, I think you want a bit of aerial presence. And so I was actually looking at Urruti's numbers. I thought he was not an aerial threat at all in this match. I was looking at his numbers, and on FBref.com, he actually ranks in just the 6th percentile amongst MLS forwards in terms of winning aerial duels. That basically means that 94% of MLS forwards are better at winning aerial duels than Maxi Urruti. And against a low block, you kind of want to have someone that can get on the end of a few crosses and get some headers, try and get chances that way.
Right.
He just isn't that threat. And his movement and just kind of position looks so much better in those other two matches because there was more space for him. In a match like this where he's going to have to battle those center backs, not the guy you want up against Tui Lima and McGraw, those very solid, resolute Portland center backs.
Right. And to be fair, it's really not a game anyway. He's not an aerial threat. And so he tried. I think I saw one opportunity that he had that he tried to put a header into a cross, and he went. So
that's the problem. I agree with you 100% that this is really not his game, but is that a problem that Austin FC don't? Because I think GT is still very raw at this point. Is it a problem that you don't really have that aerial threat against these low blocks. A lot. I mean, they're facing Seattle at the weekend. That's another team that likes to sit deep.
Right.
Nashville like to sit deep. Our RSL like to sit deep. A
Right.
lot of the big teams in the West like to play this defend deep and counter. Is it a
Right.
problem that Austin FC don't have a guy that can get on the end of these aerial duels?
Yes, it really is, and that's why they really need to get uh, GT up to speed because he has the build for it.
Yeah, I agree.
he's built like a American football fullback. He can get in there, and but he really, excuse me, he really needs to work on that, or the coaching staff, you really need to coach him up to be able to teach him how to do the aerial types of attacks because, like you said, if they face a team that is very good against the dribble, they are not going to have any opportunities to score because a lot of the crosses, a lot of Driussi's types of passes are over the top, and if there's nobody there to meet them, then their
Bit of a
scoring
problem.
chances are going to it's going to be a problem. So, but if they can find a guy, a 6'2" guy out there that I know those are hard to find, but if they can find a guy like that, or within the team, Danny Hosen's pretty tall as well. They could use him every once in a while, but he hasn't. He
I
did
don't know. I
last
don't know,
year.
Jorge.
He,
You might be talking a little crazy here. Danny Hostin as a
well, I mean,
potential contributor.
I'm
Hey,
only
maybe
saying
that may be what it takes, though. You may have
I'm
to go to that.
I'm only saying that because that's a guy on the roster. If you're
He
gonna have
is.
him on
He
the
is in
roster,
fact
use
on
him.
the roster. Believe it or not, Danny
Yeah,
Hostin is
and
still
so
on the roster.
if he's just taking up a spot, then with all due respect to Danny, just release him and have him go at another shot and have an opportunity to in the summer again. If you talk about the summer signings, if they could find a guy, that can really jump up there because it's not that I don't want to say that it's difficult, but I it's got its technique. I mean, look at what Weston McKennie was able to do over the summer. He's not a particularly tall guy, but boy, he got into a lot of headers. He scored a lot of goals, put put was very dangerous, and because he was able to kind of, you know, if I'm not mistaken, that's what he worked on when he was at Juventus. That kind of that aspect of his game. So if they can find, you know, concentrate on one of their guys to do that kind of stuff or practice on that, I think they'll be fine.
Oh, absolutely. It's not necessarily always about size. I mean, look at
It's not
Romelu
a
Lukaku.
yeah
He's a huge dude, but he's
yeah
not very good at winning aerial duels.
no
And then you mentioned McKinney. Yeah, he's someone that not necessarily the biggest guy, but he's definitely developed that aspect of his game. I got one more question. We can move on to
yeah
final thoughts, and we
yeah.
got the team of the week and some stats to show as well. But I want to get your thoughts on the John Gallagher at fullback experiment. How are you liking this?
I like it.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I think he looks
It's
okay out there.
he looks good. I mean, respect to John because he probably wasn't going to be able to get in as at midfielder or as a striker, which is his position. But if he was willing to learn and he's got the speed to be a left back, then all the power to him because the left back that we have now, called Manage, is more offensive minded, which is something that John Gallagher already is. So I like it. And he's a little taller than 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 Jan, so that's pretty helpful in the aerial game defense. And he could also be proved to be that missing piece for that aerial attack that we were just discussing. Hone his skill to be able to do that, and we might have our solution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because yeah, he is an attacking player, and I
Right,
actually kind of almost think that like we've not really seen him express himself in an attacking sense from the
right.
fullback position, but defensively, there were several dangerous Timbers counterattacks towards the end of that match
Yeah,
where Gallagher just came flying in from
and
that left
yeah,
back position to win position back. And so the defensive side of it is actually seems to be a bit further along than
right.
the attacking side as far
Yeah,
as
and
his
that's
learning
just
this role.
right, and he did that without fouling anybody, without yellow carding anybody.
Yeah,
They were
definitely.
clean tackles. Uh, Admittedly, some of those were against the players that had already been playing 70, 80 minutes. so there were tired legs out there. But there were a few where he attacked I think is the player. I can't remember exactly, but he came in almost the same time as he did, and he was a clear breakaway, and he caught up to him and took the ball. So kudos to him, because that is gonna do nothing but help him be more of a versatile player that can cause, like we just said, the quality substitutes that can go in there and change the aspect of the game.
Yeah, most of it. Yeah. Depth, cannot say that enough. The depth in this team this season versus last season, such an improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts on this match, Jorge? I want to get some Seattle predictions in before we move on. But any final thoughts on the Portland match?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Twitterverse out there say that they're going to give him 5 games. I personally gave him 10 games to see where the team is.
Josh Wolff now. We're talking Josh Wolff.
Right. We're talking Josh Wolff, but again, I mean, it's not like they played terribly. I mean, they played very well. The substitution's probably questionable, but reasonable. I mean, any coach would have probably.
Was it too late? Was that the issue? Because I don't necessarily have an issue with the subs, but it came. The tide was turning in the match, and it felt like Wolff reacted. The goal came in the 62nd minute. Subs came. That first wave of subs came in the 66th minute. And it's almost waited too long to react to the tide of the match turning on Austin FC a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine they have a script of when they're going to put in their substitutes and under what situations, and I think just when that goal was scored is probably when they were thinking of doing the switch anyway. So it was just. I think it was just a coincidence that they. I mean, if they would have brought in guys in the 55th minute, that would have been odd because.
Yeah, you usually always see, even with the new 5 subs, you usually always see at least 60th minute.
65, right? So that that wasn't too different than what other coaches do. So I don't think it was too late, because as you saw after they were the new guys brought in, the guys that were brought out. They were the ones that had the yellow cards, so they played with a lot more confidence. They attacked better, and they came close. I mean, they came close to scoring, and just again bounce of the ball, and they would have probably tied it. But as far as that's concerned, and looking forward to Seattle, I think continue to do well if they maintain sort of the same lineup. I mean, they're going to have to. The coaching staff, I'm sure, looks at at a team with the players that are on the team. If a guy like Nicolas Ladero and Raul Ruiz Diaz, if they're playing, that's one lineup that they're going to do. If they're not playing, it's
do you think, because both of those players have been injured for Seattle, so I don't know.
Right.
Have you heard if they're? I couldn't find any information as to what.
Yeah, I tried looking, and it doesn't look like either one of those guys are going to be playing. So
that's a huge relief for us. Right.
So if that were to happen, I really foresee Josh Wolff keeping pretty much the same lineup. Why mess with a good thing? The only probably difference that I would see is I probably foresee Valencia starting in front of the name
Pereira. I love
Pereira.
Danny's been great, but I don't hate that decision. If that's what Wolff does, I won't.
Yeah, and it's not this, and it's not being disrespectful to Pereira or anything. It's just you want to find the right chemistry, and you brought in a guy from the defending championship team from your country. He's got to have some quality, and so might as well throw to the lines against one of the best teams in the league. Now it could be a little bit of a letdown because, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of a good segue for us, CONCACAF Champions League coming up, and they're going to be playing.
Yeah. So Seattle, this is a huge bonus for us FC. So Seattle are playing the second leg of their Champions League quarterfinal tie on Thursday.
Right.
Playing Austin FC Sunday 3:30 at Q2. So not a whole lot of time for them to rest before the FC match.
Right.
But man, Seattle. So they started this season with 2 defeats, 2 1-0
Right.
defeats, one to Nashville, one to RSL. But any doubt that this team is legit, because this was a team that many predicted to be MLS Cup winners,
Right.
CONCACAF Champions League winners. I heard some people this is the best team MLS has ever seen,
Hmm.
which is, I mean, a bold claim, but you can see why people would say that.
Yeah.
So started slow, but then over Jorge Iturralde in the
Yeah.
CONCACAF Champions League, a 3-2 win for the Galaxy in
Right.
MLS play over the weekend. And one of the things that I noticed about this Seattle team, doing some research ahead of the show, a
Yeah.
lot like Portland. They, the 2
Yep.
matches, the
Very
2 big
similar.
wins this past week, 37% possession against the Galaxy, just 31% possession against FC. They're gonna have to break down a deep defense again. So, hopefully they can come up with some
Yeah.
solutions for it. But again, I think it's a huge help that they're playing on Thursday in Mexico in a match
Right.
that they desperately want to win, or at
Yeah.
least
Because
get to the.
right. I mean, I imagine the traveling arrangements are going to be, flying to probably already in Mexico if they're not already on their way. They're going to play the game and they're gonna fly straight here because it just makes sense, really. So again, it depends on who they're going to use and how battered they are. If
We need Jorge Iturralde's Leon to really
yeah,
wear them down, tire them out.
yeah,
They got to
um,
play better than they did in Seattle.
yeah, and they're
Really
going
got
to. I mean, Mexican teams, they're like that. They bounce back very very well, no matter what team it is, and so I foresee a much tougher game for Seattle in Leon. But it depends how that game goes. If for some unforeseen reason Seattle just dominates Leon again, then they're going to probably play the same guys against Austin because they're going to have that confidence.
And see,
If
the thing is, like a lot of times you would think, okay, 3-0 from the first leg, we can rest guys for the second legs.
oh
Up 3-0.
no, yeah,
Not going to Mexico. You don't want to do that.
you don't want to do that,
You got to play the A team. There's
right?
no chance
You
you're going to
got
rest them.
you got to place you got to have one of your stronger lineups. So if they lose, I mean, God, if Seattle loses to Leon, are going up 3-0 on aggregate, that's going to be a big letdown to Seattle, and
We
that's
may
probably
have to just let Jorge Iturralde host our show next week if
yeah, and
Leon
and
pulls
that's
that kind
gonna
of that may be what happens.
so that goes into the psyche of and play stronger on Saturday or on Sunday, or are they going to completely destroy Leon and come back and take it easier because they got over a big hurdle? It's difficult to really do.
Little detour here. MLS in very good shape in the
Very
CONCACAF
good
Champions League,
shape,
a competition that an MLS team has never won. So
right?
you've got Seattle up 3-0 on Leon. You've got the New England Revolution up 3-0 on Pumas.
Right,
Montreal with a very credible 1-0 defeat on the road against Cruz Azul, and then
right.
NYCFC beat the Guatemalan team Comunicaciones 3-1.
3-1,
It is very possible, likely that I think you're going to see 3 MLS teams in the semifinals,
right,
and possibly even 4 MLS teams in the semifinal, which would
right.
be absolutely remarkable. Jorge, is this the year it finally happens for MLS? Is this the year they finally win CONCACAF Champions
I
League?
think so. I mean, because I think the most crucial game would be that Montreal Cruz Azul game that's going to be played in cold Montreal.
Yeah, it's
And
not going
so
to be a gimme for Cruz Azul. They're going to
yeah,
have some work to do.
and so that's going to be the most interesting game. I think the other games probably have all they really need to do is park the bus. And
And
MLS
Seattle,
teams,
hey, that's what they like to do. They like to park the
yeah,
bus.
and MLS teams are very good at parking the bus, and especially a Seattle team that really doesn't have probably doesn't have their best attacking options due to injury. So they already have the advantage, and they're just gonna play defensive, I think, for the rest of the game. And as far as the other teams, New England, they're not gonna do that. They are gonna, I think, maintain the same of play style that they had that they did to beat UNAM. So UNAM's probably not that good, I think, if I'm not mistaken, so far this season. So I think Revolution is going to pressure UNAM again and keep
So
attacking.
here's the question I have for you, Jorge.
Yeah,
Does it um, delegitimize, like if MLS were to win,
yeah,
an MLS team were to win CONCACAF Champions League this season, does it hurt the the perception of this win that we're not seeing like Tigres playing in CONCACAF Champions League this season? We're not seeing America,
right.
Monterrey, Chivas. Like the big teams aren't. All due respect to Leon, the big teams aren't playing in the Champions League this year.
Right.
Does that delegitimize MLS's triumph if they ultimately do triumph?
Well, if they would have had America playing in the Champions League, they're in last place right now. They are a mess. So, do they really want America on here?
Because I've
Because
heard
they,
people say that. I've heard people
yeah,
say that.
because they're just going by the name. They're not going by the status of the actual team at the moment. Their coach is terrible, and Tigres isn't doing all that well either. So,
No,
it
I mean there's a
happens.
reason why they're not in the competition
The
because
reason why they're not here because
not playing
they
well.
aren't very good, and so it does just because those teams aren't there doesn't. I mean, LAFC is in here, and they nearly beat
Yes.
Tigres last season. They didn't make it. Uh, NYCFC didn't make it either, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
And
they're in the they beat Comunicaciones. So
oh,
yeah.
oh, they are. I'm sorry. So but they're in. So you know, uh, that's hogwash. You
Yes.
play the
Speak
teams
your
that
mind, Jorge. Love
you
it.
play the teams that are in front of you. You don't play history. And if you want to go play history, I mean, we can go into all sorts of stuff and say, well, of course, Mexican teams have always won this competition, but that's going to change eventually. And I see the tide turning now. I mean, look at all the teams that are there now. They're up on the Mexican counterparts, uh, and really dominated them. I mean, I think was it the which game was it where they probably I think it was Sounders, if I'm not mistaken. They probably should have had 6 goals,
Yeah, no,
three.
they missed
They
chances. Yeah,
destroyed them.
it could have been worse for Leon. As
Yeah,
bad
and
as
New
it
York
already
City,
was.
same. But Comunicaciones is Comunicaciones. They're not the strongest side either. So New York City could have won by much more. So you know, you play the teams that are given to you, and if these are the teams that MLS needs to beat, and they do, fine. I mean, it's one of those things where you can't determine the strength of the league by the history. You have to determine it year by year by year. It's a cumulative thing, and eventually, I mean, what if MLS wins it this year and they win it next year? Or MLS Liga MX fans still going to say, "Oh, we're still dominant"? Yeah, 3 years ago, you didn't win it last year. You didn't win it this year.
What have you
So
done for me lately? That's
exactly,
what
and
it's
and
all
that's really
about.
what it is. I mean, we can talk about America. I mean, they've been a dominant team for decades and decades, and then this year currently they are just. Well, does it mean that they're one of the bigger teams in MLS in Liga MX? Of course, but they suck this year, so it's fine. You know,
Don't hold back, Jorge. Speak your
yeah,
mind, man.
they're allowed. So Chivas, same thing. I saw the comments on because of the Clasico.
Oh,
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah,
There
yeah.
we go.
How many stars is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stars. So yeah, that's fine. But that does those 6 stars are just going to give you a little bit of pride to play better against Sounders. It doesn't mean anything on the field. If Seattle
They'll need
parks the
more than
bus
history to
and
overturn a three-goal
yeah, they're gonna need.
adverse deficit. To be
And
sure.
I guess we could. I didn't look it up to be honest, but because of the situation that happened in Querétaro, I don't think MLS Liga MX teams are allowing fans into their stadiums. But I'm not sure.
Hmm.
That
Yeah,
could be
not
a
sure about
factor
that
if
either.
that is the case. But
Yeah, it'd be a huge factor. Yeah, if that's the case.
yeah, so that could that could have been a factor why Cruz Azul didn't play all that well against Montreal and barely beat them 1-0. So that situation is still wreaking havoc all over the place,
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately.
oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. So we took a little tour there into the CONCACAF Champions League. Let's get Seattle predictions. Austin FC
Oh
versus
yeah, yeah,
Seattle.
yeah.
How do you see this one playing out, Jorge?
I think Boston beats Seattle. Excuse me, 2-1.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's and I'm assuming you're a part of that is because of their CONCACAF Champions League.
that's a big factor. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I boy, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go 1-1. I
Okay,
my optimism has been slightly damaged
okay.
by this Portland defeat and this hat that I have to wear. I don't want to. I'm not going out on the ledge this
Right,
week. I'm going to go 1-1. I think it might be kind of scrappy. Maybe not the most compelling match to watch
right.
because Seattle's tired legs, Austin FC's difficulties breaking down low blocks. I think it could be ugly, but I do think there'll be a goal each, so it'll be okay.
Okay.
And again, like a draw against a very good Seattle team,
Yeah,
definitely not a bad result. Wouldn't be a bad
yeah,
result.
a draw with Seattle would not be a bad result at all. I mean, I think a lot of people are again setting their expectations too high because of the exceptional wins against Cincinnati and Miami, and like we talked about earlier, Cincinnati really not that bad of a team. They won.
No,
They won this weekend 2-1.
and we're unlucky not to get something out of their match last week against DC United. Took a
Exactly. Yeah.
late penalty
Late
for them
penalty.
to
Yeah.
lose that match.
So they're one couple of minutes away from being, 1-1-1. To be honest,
Yeah.
and so that's not a bad result for a Cincinnati team that's been the bottom of the league for the last couple of years. That's progress. As far as Inter Miami is concerned, they got a draw over the weekend as well. So everything builds up to with the results. So we'll see how Seattle comes in from the game at Leon to see how defeated they are or how confident they are. But I think we'll get a good result.
Yes, it will be interesting to see. I think we got the team of the week that
Yeah,
our fearless leader, Jorge has informed us as for us. I don't know how many Austin FC names we're going to see on the team of the week this week.
probably
I
not
might need. I
many.
might need my. Oh, look at Vasquez, FC Cincinnati.
FC
He was
Cincinnati.
very good. He was very
Yeah,
good against Austin. So
he
I'm
was
not
very
surprised to see him
dangerous
on there.
against that and very so yeah. There was a couple of shots that he took
Yeah, Tui
that
Loma from Portland. I'm not surprised to see
no
him. On
yeah
his, he was very good.
yeah
Scored the
exa-
goal and was just absolutely outstanding defensively.
right
Yeah,
right
and no Austin FC players.
no
And
and
fortunately
it's
for
expected.
David, he doesn't have to see Josh Wolff named the coach of the week. So
Well, yeah,
that's
you know he can win every week.
no, that would be a little strange if he was every week.
Yeah, that would be odd. But
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to let's talk a little European
yeah.
soccer here, Jorge. And we are both look at that.
Oh yeah. Before we move into that, congratulations to we had the EMS tournament here in South by Southwest in Austin, with a presentation by our friends at Morgan. They were there hyping
Ah,
up the crowd, and from what I see, it was a big event, and there were lines going around the block there at the Willie Nelson stage there, and so unfortunately our guy couldn't win. Didn't
mm.
play all that well, to be honest. But congratulations to Paul Tone 999, who was representing Atlanta United, and he was able to come out with
Glad
a
you
win.
pronounced
So
that, Jorge, because
I
I might struggle
I
with that.
I took a stab at it. So Paulo
Yeah, I have
Neto,
to
I think it's
say,
Paulo Neto. I think he's Hispanic, so it could be Paulo Neto 999.
ah,
So.
okay. I have to confess, I'm not. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. They could, they could do some damage. So, it could-
Yes.
yeah, I'm just glad that nobody died. I mean, I think there's a couple of people that were very, very seriously injured, and
Yes,
it looked like
yes.
it's, but it looks like they'll be able to recover. But man, that was bad. And then here's a Rouge's. We missed the Rouge 4-0 Barcelona
Yeah,
win.
Arush, happy days for Arush as Barcelona 4-0 winners against Osasuna this weekend. And actually coming up next weekend at the same time Austin FC are playing.
Yes,
El Clasico will be going on.
yeah,
So
it's
that'll
gonna
be one. If
be.
you're in the stands at you might have your phone out, keep an eye on El
Yeah, you might have
Clasico.
the.
You got any predictions for the Clasico? Madrid will be hosting, so it'll be
Yeah,
in Madrid. Both teams in really, really good
really
form
good shape.
right
Yeah,
now. I still think the title is kind of just out of Barcelona's grasp right now, but I'm
yeah,
excited. This is the best these two teams have looked going into a Clasico in quite some time. How do you
yes.
see it playing out, Jorge?
I think Barcelona's gonna win, and the reason why is because I think Barcelona knows that they're not going to be able to catch Real Madrid in the stands
No.
in the standings. So this is going to be their championship, if you will, to play their best game against Real Madrid, and they have the pieces for it. So, uh, you know, I I foresee a very, very good game that we'll probably have to see on paper on DVR because we're going to be in Austin
Yeah.
FC. But I foresee. I would not be surprised if Barcelona plays very well, very, very well, and wins.
Yeah, I'm
I
kind
think
of
they'll
like
win.
in Barca right now too. I was skeptical about Xavi's appointment. I was very skeptical about the Aubameyang signing. That was
Yeah,
thinking like we got to
they
erase that. We got to erase that I
they
ever said
they
that.
cleared that up very well.
Because
So
Aubameyang is a gift from heaven, according to Xavi.
yes,
I don't know if he's
absolutely
wrong. He's got 5 goals, I think, in 6 matches for
right.
Barcelona.
Yeah, he they turned him on. they
Yeah,
they they put
just
him
for
they put in the batteries for the guy or
it
something.
may he just I guess just really didn't like Mikel Arteta. I guess that's what it comes
I
down to for
I guess
Aubameyang.
so. I guess that's what it was needed.
I want to get your thoughts on something before. I know we're kind of running short on time. I want to get your
Yeah,
thoughts on something, Jorge.
yeah,
It involves our look at that right there. See, these are images that will make Arush happy.
yes.
But I want to ask you about something that I'm sure made Arush very sad, and that was Lionel Messi being booed by his own fans
Yeah, I
during
saw that.
PSG's 3-0 win over Bordeaux at the weekend. What do you think? And Neymar also booed in this match as well. So the two
Yeah,
big PSG stars. PSG, of course, there it is. The Aubameyang, a gift that fell from
yeah,
the sky. Um, Obviously, this booing was in response to the latest PSG collapse in the Champions League, blowing
right.
a 2-0 lead in the tie to Real Madrid, losing 3-2. Did Messi and Neymar deserve these boos, Jorge?
I think they're a little. I think the PSG fans are probably a little. What's the word that I'm looking for? A
Spoiled?
little spoiled is the exact same word that I was thinking about. They're spoiled. I mean, they have the arguably the best team in the world right now, and they're not clicking. It happens sometimes, and so Messi's not the same Messi as years before. He's struggling. It's obvious that he's
So,
struggling. He's
I
frustrated,
actually,
and so you know,
I actually don't think Messi was that bad against Real Madrid. I thought
but
he
he
was he
didn't
was
score.
okay.
So
He did not score.
and that's and that's the bottom
Which I
line.
suppose is the expectation when you're paying the kind of salary that I'm sure Messi is on.
Yes,
You do expect goals.
right.
Neymar, on the other hand, I thought was abysmal against Real
Oh,
Madrid.
he was
He had the
terrible.
he
Yeah,
had the assist on
yeah.
Mbappe's goal. That was a very nice
But
assist, but
yeah.
otherwise, just awful.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, there was sequences where he would drop back and try and collect possession. It would just immediately get dispossessed,
Right.
and that's him going forward. And did his usual absolutely nothing
Right.
defensively. I mean, there were so many times where the camera would be on PSG, and you'd have 7 of PSG's outfield players back in a defensive formation, and then you would have Messi,
Yeah.
Neymar, Mbappe completely detached from the other
Yeah. I
7
mean,
standing up
I
top
mean,
further up the field.
these guys aren't gods. They need other players near them to be able
It's
to.
so tough to try and carry 3 players who do
Yeah.
nothing defensively.
Right.
Nothing.
but it reminds me a little bit, uh, for any NBA basketball fans out there, of the Lakers. I mean, they have
Mm,
tons of talent, but they're just not clicking, and they're terrible. They're probably out of the playoffs. And
wow.
so for PSG, it's something similar. They have really good players that the best for money can buy, but they're probably a little overpriced, to be honest. I mean, Messi, he not to be disrespectful, but the best player in the world needs to produce, and he's not producing. And is that his fault? Is that the fault of I was hearing a conversation, um, coming in to the studio, and they were talking about NFL players. Brady's coming back, and all
Yeah,
these
thanks
trades
to
and coming.
Ronaldo scoring a
Yeah,
hat trick
I,
against
I, I wonder
Spurs,
if
it
it had something to do
inspired.
with that, by the way. But you know, they the depending on the player, you can Tom Brady can get $50 million, and he probably deserves $50 million a year. But is that going to translate into having other people around him that are going to help him? No. So he's going to sacrifice those 50 million and get 20, so that the team can buy other players to supplement his greatness. That's what PSG needs to do now. I mean, they have Mbappe, they have Neymar, but if they can sell Mbappe, which is probable, to
Seems very likely.
Real Madrid or Barcelona or somebody, and get
Seems very
three,
likely Real Madrid. Yeah.
yeah, two or three other players of a little lesser quality, but that can complement Messi a little better. I think it's worth exploring. So I think they just have to grin and bear it for the moment until the Mbappe situation clears up, and then see what's available.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of big decisions for PSG coming up. So we're just about
Yeah.
out of time. But I have to mention this, Jorge, since both you and I we're Chelsea supporters.
Yes.
It's a it's a bit of a difficult time
Yeah.
for Chelsea at the moment, as their owner, or a former owner perhaps at this point, Roman
Who
Abramovich has
knows?
been sanctioned.
Yeah.
His assets have been frozen, and that basically means Chelsea they can't sell tickets, they can't
Right.
sell merchandise.
Right.
David tried to go buy a jersey, a Chelsea jersey, and was shut down. You can't buy a
Wow.
Chelsea
Oh my
jersey
God.
right now.
They
Uh,
found David Alvarez's buying power. Wow.
Which is wow. I mean that's how you
That's
know that's how serious it
serious.
is.
Yeah, that's serious.
There's a limit on how much they can actually spend on travel accommodations, which
Right.
is Chelsea are in Europe. They're in the Champions League, likely
They're
to
little.
progress through beyond Lille in the
Yeah.
round of 16 to go into the quarterfinals. So that it costs money to travel around Europe and stay in the
Yeah.
kind of hotels, fly the kind of planes that Chelsea players are used to staying in and flying in.
Right.
So very, very difficult situation. So Roman Abramovich, he's always denied that he has links to Vladimir Putin. The UK government sees it differently, and so that is why these sanctions have
Right.
happened. And so as of right now, there are bids to buy Chelsea. According to Sky Sports, I saw today that there have been over 200 interested party. There is Roman Abramovich right
Right.
there on the screen in a much happier time. It looks like for Roman than what he is facing
Yeah.
right now. Out of the names that you've heard tossed around, Jorge, I don't know how close you've been following it. Is
Yeah.
there anyone in particular that would most interest you to buy the club as a Chelsea fan?
There's several good bids, and one was that really. There's two that are up ends of my happiness, if it were to happen. At the top end would be the Dodgers ownership.
I
They
100% agree.
they are
That's who I
they
want.
are
That's who I want.
interested in Chelsea, and just imagine the crossover if they were to buy the Chelsea. They could sell out Dodger Stadium with exhibitions from Chelsea FC in the LA area
Oh
without
yeah.
problem. At the other spectrum of the unhappiness scale is the Jets ownership. that no,
That
that no, no, just no. And so because
no.
if that ownership group does to the Jets and they do to Chelsea, that that we're going to see Chelsea in the champions
Yeah,
without
absolutely
league.
atrocious. And I did see it. The name that really frightens me. I did see that The owners of I'm a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I did see the owners
Yes, that's
of the
right.
Chicago Cubs,
Right.
arch rival of my beloved Cardinals, are
Right.
interested in buying Chelsea. I would weep for days on end if that ends up happening.
Yeah,
Please,
and
please, please don't let that happen.
it's interesting that it's a lot of American interest
Yes, a
because
ton of
they're
American
seeing. I
interest.
mean, they're seeing the value of in England of purchasing a team like that, and so it's. I know that a lot of English soccer fans would probably not be too happy about an American owner, but compare
Hey, it's
that to a
working for
Russian owner.
Liverpool. It's working for Liverpool. They're doing
I
just
don't think
fine with
they're
an American.
complaining anymore. So yeah,
Initially,
so
they may have been, but not now.
absolutely, no,
But yeah,
not
we
anymore.
are interested times ahead at Chelsea
Yes,
for sure. It may change by the time this goes out. But okay, Jorge, it's been fun.
yes,
We'll do this again next week. Thank you to our
yes.
audience. Thank you to Jorge Iturralde. There's our man, Christian Pulisic, not looking too happy.
But
He's
but
waiting
his
for a
team won
buyer. He's
the
waiting for a
minute, by
buyer.
the way.
Yeah, despite all the chaos, Chelsea's still winning. All right, we'll
Yes,
do this again next week, Jorge. Appreciate it, man.
sounds great. See y'all.